The 3 bags of groceries fell from my hands. Apples rolled across our hardwood floors as I stood frozen in the doorway. There, next to my husband's polished loafers, sat a pair of elegant women's heels, stilettos I'd never seen before. My heart slammed against my ribs. From upstairs came the unmistakable sound of our bedroom door closing, followed by hushed voices. I'm Norichan Williams, 38, a forensic accountant who built my reputation on spotting things that don't belong. Ironic that I missed what was happening in my own home. 10 years of marriage to Dominic, an investment banker with piercing blue eyes that I once thought only sparkled for me. Our life in Boston's Beacon Hill neighborhood was picture perfect on Instagram. Renovated brownstone, weekend trips to Cape Cod, dinner parties with his colleagues. Everyone thought we had everything. I silently picked up an apple. Its red skin cool against my suddenly hot palm. A laugh floated down the stairs, feminine, intimate. The knife of betrayal twisted deeper. This was no delivery person or repair technician. Those shoes, expensive, red-soled, belonged to a woman who was comfortable enough to slip them off in my home. Hello. I called out, my voice surprisingly steady. Dom. I'm home early. The voices upstairs went silent. Then rushed movement, the creak of our bedroom floorboards. I heard my husband's forced laugh, the fake one he used when talking to difficult clients. Hey babe. Just wrapping up a work call. Be right down. Work call. At 2 p.m. on a Saturday. In our bedroom. With high heels by the door. I should have screamed. I should have charged upstairs. But years of meticulously following financial paper trails had taught me patience. Evidence was everything. So instead, I calmly collected the spilled groceries, placed them on the kitchen counter, and pulled out my phone. I opened the camera app and quietly took pictures of those damning heels. Then I did something that would change everything. I sent the photo to myself, walked to the front door, and slammed it shut as if I had just arrived. Honey, I'm home. I called out cheerfully, making a show of setting down my keys. Rapide footsteps. Hush d'urgent whisper. I heard our bedroom window opening, the one leading to the fire escape. By the time Dom appeared at the top of the stairs, his shirt was misbuttoned and his hair disheveled. The shoes by the door had vanished. Hey, you're back early, he said, his voice an octave too high. How was the market? I smiled, the kind of smile that didn't reach my eyes. Crowded. I forgot a few things, but I'll go back tomorrow. I busied myself with the groceries, back turned to him. How's your work call going? All done, he said too quickly, coming down the stairs. Just some weekend emergency with the Harrington account. I nodded, watching as he tried to casually straighten his collar in our kitchen's reflection. The diamond ring on my finger caught the afternoon light, throwing tiny rainbows across the counter. It felt heavier than ever. Everything okay? He asked, noticing my silence. Perfect, I lied. Just thinking about dinner tonight. He came behind me, wrapped his arms around my waist. I smelled unfamiliar perfume on his neck. Floral. Expensive. Not mine. I need to pop out for about an hour, he said. Forgot to get those golf clubs from Trevor. We've got that charity tournament next weekend. Another lie. Trevor had moved to Chicago 3 months ago. Sure, I said, not meeting his eyes. Take your time. As he grabbed his keys and wallet, I watched him check his phone, a small smile playing at his lips. A text message that wasn't from me. Love you, he called over his shoulder as he left. I didn't answer. Instead, I walked to our hallway closet and knelt down. Behind the winter boots and rain shoes was a small home security camera I'd installed last month when I first suspected something was wrong. I removed the memory card and slipped it into my laptop. What Dominic didn't know was that I had been documenting his patterns for weeks now. The late nights, the weekend emergencies, the unexplained charges on our credit card statements. Today wasn't the first time he'd brought someone into our home, but it would definitely be the last. Sunday morning dawned bright and clear. I smiled at Dominic across our kitchen island as I poured him coffee in his favorite mug, the one I'd bought him on our honeymoon in Kyoto. Sleep well? I asked, watching him scroll through his phone. Like a rock, he lied, reaching for the cream. He'd tossed and turned all night, checking his phone whenever he thought I was asleep. I'd spent hours reviewing the security footage. The woman, blonde, slim, maybe early 30s, had arrived 40 minutes before me. The camera caught her passionate kiss with Dom at the door before they hurried upstairs. After my unexpected return, the footage showed her slip out our back door while Dom distracted me in the kitchen. Her name was Vanessa Elliott, according to my late-night social media research, VP of Client Relations at Dom's bank. Married herself, with 2 young children whose faces filled her Instagram feed. I'm thinking of visiting my sister in Seattle next weekend, I said casually, biting into my toast. You'll be busy with that golf tournament anyway. Dom looked up, relief washing over his features. Great idea, babe. You haven't seen May in months. I nodded, making a mental note of how quickly he embraced my absence. No, I'll miss you. Or suggestion to postpone my trip, so we could spend time together. I'll book my flight today, I said. But first, I need to stop by the office. Year-end audits are killing me. Another lie. I had no intention of going to my office. Instead, I drove to the bank where both Dominic and I kept our accounts, separate and joint. 10 years ago, I'd insisted on maintaining financial independence alongside our shared accounts. Smart women keep their options open. My mother had advised before our wedding. Now I understood why. I'd like to review my account security. I told the bank manager, a woman about my age named Patricia. Of course, Miss Chun Williams. Any particular concerns? I leaned forward. My husband and I are having some difficulties. I want to ensure my personal accounts remain private. Understanding flashed in her eyes. The universal female recognition of what difficulties likely meant. She typed rapidly on her keyboard. Your individual accounts are solely in your name, with no authorized users, she confirmed. However, I see Mr. Williams attempted to add himself as an authorized user last Tuesday. My blood ran cold. He did what? Patricia turned the screen toward me. There it was, a failed authorization attempt on my primary savings account. The one holding my pre-marriage inheritance and decade of carefully saved bonuses. He would have needed your signature or digital approval, Patricia explained. The system flagged it as suspicious when he couldn't provide your passcode. I took a steadying breath. Can you add extra security protocols? And I'd like statements sent to my personal email only. Absolutely, she said, fingers flying over the keyboard. And what about your joint accounts? I thought for a moment. Let them be for now. I don't want to raise any alarms. After leaving the bank, I drove to a coffee shop 3 neighborhoods away from ours. I ordered an Americano and opened my laptop. The first email I sent was to Lockwood & Associates, a divorce attorney firm with a reputation for being ruthless with unfaithful spouses. The second was to my boss, requesting a private meeting tomorrow morning. The third was to a real estate agent about short-term rental options. My phone pinged with a text from Dom. Working late tonight. Don't wait up. I smiled at the screen. The predictability was almost comforting now. I texted back. No problem. I'll be at the gym then bed early. Love you. Instead, I drove to our home and parked a block away, then walked through the alley to our back entrance. The house was empty, as expected. I went straight to Dom's home office and opened his laptop. We knew each other's passwords, or at least he thought we still did. He changed his main accounts recently, but had forgotten about his old email address, the one he rarely used now. I logged in easily. Nothing of interest at first: newsletters, alumni updates, spam. Then I spotted a folder labeled Tax Docs 2018. An odd label for current correspondence. I clicked. Hundreds of emails appeared, all between Dom and multiple women over the past 3 years. Vanessa was just the latest. There were hotel confirmations, intimate photos, plans for business trips that were actually romantic getaways. My hands trembled as I forwarded everything to my secure email account, then carefully restored the computer exactly as I'd found it. Before leaving, I placed a small voice-activated recorder under his desk and another in our bedroom. Then I drove to the gym, worked out for exactly 45 minutes, and took a selfie in the locker room to establish my alibi. That night, I slept in our guest room, claiming a migraine. Dom didn't protest. In fact, he seemed relieved. As I lay in the dark, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not just anger or heartbreak, but a cold, clarifying purpose. This wasn't just about catching him anymore. This was about taking back what was mine. My dignity, my security, my future. What Dominic couldn't see was that while he thought he was cleverly managing multiple lives, I was 10 steps ahead of him. Tomorrow, I would meet with my boss to request a transfer to our Seattle office. Not because I wanted to run away, but because I needed to establish residence in a state with more favorable divorce laws. The game was just beginning, and I had already positioned my pieces on the board. I appreciate your discretion in this matter, I said, sitting across from Gerald Tanaka, the managing partner of our accounting firm. His corner office overlooked Boston Harbor, sunlight glinting off the water. Family comes first, Nora, he replied, concern etching his features. Our Seattle office will be lucky to have you, even temporarily. Have you decided how long you'll need? 6 months, possibly longer. I passed him a folder with my transition plan. I've outlined how to distribute my current clients. Nancy can handle most of them, with Owen taking the more complex portfolios. Gerald nodded approvingly. Always thorough. That's why you're our best. He hesitated. Does Dominic know about this transfer request? He supports it completely, I lied smoothly. His work keeps him here, but we'll manage the distance. The rest of the day passed in a blur of meetings and paperwork. By evening, my Seattle transfer was approved, with a start date in 2 weeks. I drove home with a sense of grim satisfaction, only to find Dom waiting in the kitchen with takeout from my favorite Vietnamese restaurant. Surprise, he grinned, holding up containers of pho and spring rolls. Thought you deserved a treat after that migraine last night. I blinked, momentarily thrown by this display of consideration. For a second, doubt crept in. Then I noticed his phone face down on the counter, deliberately placed out of my line of sight. That's so thoughtful, I said, kissing his cheek. Let me change quickly. Upstairs, I checked the bedroom recorder. 3 new audio files. I transferred them to my phone for later listening, and changed into comfortable clothes. Over dinner, Dom was unusually attentive, asking about my day, laughing at my office stories. Anyone watching would have seen a devoted husband. I played along, mentally cataloging each lie he told about his own day. I've been thinking about your Seattle trip, he said, twirling noodles with his chopsticks. Why not extend it? You've been working so hard. You deserve a real break. I kept my expression neutral while my mind raced. How long were you thinking? 2 weeks? Maybe 3. He reached for my hand. Your sister would love the extra time with you. That's actually perfect, I said, squeezing his hand. I was going to tell you. Gerald offered me a temporary assignment at our Seattle office. 6 months, possibly longer. Dom's chopsticks froze midair. 6 months? That's not what I meant. I tilted my head. But you just said I deserve a break. The timing works out perfectly. I can stay with May until I find a short-term rental. But he struggled visibly. What about us? Our home. You'll be fine, I said brightly. You're barely home with your work schedule anyway. We can video chat every night. He set down his chopsticks. Nora, that's a long time to be apart. Is it? I looked directly into his eyes. You seemed pretty excited about the idea a minute ago. His gaze shifted away first. I just meant a vacation, not a move. It's temporary, I reminded him. Unless, is there a reason you don't want me to go? The challenge hung between us. For a moment, I thought he might confess everything. Instead, he reached for his wine glass. Of course not. If it's important to your career, you should go. His smile didn't reach his eyes. When would you leave? 2 weeks from Friday, I answered. I've already started packing some things. Later that night, I listened to the recorder files in the bathroom with the shower running. One captured Dom on a phone call with Vanessa, reassuring her that this weekend will work perfectly, because I would be out of town looking for apartments in Seattle. The second was a conversation with someone named Marcus about liquidating some investments. Investments I knew nothing about. The third was Dom making another call, his voice tense. She can't find out about the Cayman account. Not yet. No, I'm handling it. Cayman account? My forensic accountant brain went into overdrive. Dom and I filed taxes jointly. I reviewed our financial documents every year. There was no mention of any offshore accounts. The next morning, I called my divorce attorney from my car. We need to add financial forensics to our strategy, I told her. I have reason to believe there are hidden assets. Not surprising, she replied matter-of-factly. Especially with his background in investment banking. We'll subpoena everything once we file. No, I said firmly. I need to find it first, before he has any idea we're looking. I have access to resources through my work. Give me time. That evening, I made a show of packing summer clothes while Dom watched from the doorway of our walk-in closet. Seattle's cooler than Boston, he offered. Even in summer. True, I agreed, deliberately selecting sundresses I knew would be impractical. Let him think I was being impulsive, unprepared. Dom's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then back at me. Emergency at work. I need to go in. At 8 p.m.? I raised an eyebrow. International markets, he said, already backing toward the door. Shouldn't be more than a couple of hours. After he left, I went to his office again. This time, I didn't touch his computer. Instead, I carefully examined every book on his shelves, checking for hollowed-out hiding places. I ran my fingers under his desk, behind drawers, inside the potted plant. Nothing. Then I noticed something odd. A slight discoloration on the crown molding near the ceiling. Standing on his desk chair, I pressed the area gently. A small panel popped open, revealing a thumb drive taped inside. Heart pounding. I took it to my laptop. The drive was encrypted, but I recognized the protection pattern. It was similar to what we used at my firm for sensitive client data. 3 failed password attempts would trigger a complete data wipe. I couldn't risk guessing. But I didn't need to see what was on it yet. Just having found it was enough for now. I carefully replaced it exactly as I'd found it, then added a nearly invisible strand of hair between the panel and ceiling. If Dom checked it, the hair would fall, alerting me. That night, I called my sister May while Dom was still out. Ina a favor. Y explainat. A big one. Anything, she replied without hesitation. When Dom calls you, and he will, confirm that I'm staying with you while apartment hunting in Seattle. Act excited but not suspicious. Her voice dropped. Nora, what's happening? I can't explain everything yet. Just know I'm being careful and I have a plan. Is he hurting you? Her voice was tight with worry. Not physically, I assured her. This is about protecting my future. I'll explain everything soon, I promise. After hanging up, I sent an email to our family attorney requesting copies of our prenuptial agreement. Dom had insisted on it to protect his family assets. Never imagining that one day it would be me needing its protection clauses, particularly the one that tripled my settlement in case of infidelity. What Dominic didn't realize as he secretly met with Vanessa that night was that I had already discovered his hidden Cayman account. What he couldn't know was that tomorrow, while he was at his charity golf lunch, I would be meeting with a forensic computer specialist who owed me a favor, someone who could crack his encryption without triggering the failsafe. The thumb drive would be his undoing, and I already knew exactly how I would use it. The specialist's name was Raj, a former colleague who now ran a digital forensics company. We met at a coffee shop far from my usual haunts. Describe the encryption again, he said, keeping his voice low. I sketched the pattern I'd seen. 3-tier protection, similar to Kellerman's security protocols. 3 strikes and it wipes. Raj whistled softly. Your husband really doesn't want anyone seeing what's on there. Can you bypass it? I asked. He hesitated. Legally. This is my husband's drive, found in our shared home, I said carefully. I have reasonable concern about financial impropriety affecting our joint assets. Raj nodded slowly. I'd need physical possession for at least 6 hours. And I can't guarantee success. I'll have it to you by tomorrow morning, I promised. He has a breakfast meeting, then straight to work. That night at dinner, Dom mentioned his golf charity event had been moved up to tomorrow morning. 8 a.m. tea time at Brookline, he said, cutting into his steak. Should be done by early afternoon. I nodded, hiding my satisfaction at this unexpected gift of time. Perfect. I have that estate planning meeting with our financial advisor at 10. Another lie. One more in the tapestry we were both weaving. The next morning, Dom left at 7:30, dressed in golf attire that would never see a fairway. I waited 15 minutes, then retrieved the thumb drive from its hiding place. The hair strand had remained in place. He hadn't checked it. By 8:15, I was at Raj's office. I need it back by 2 p.m. at the latest, I told him. I'll call as soon as I have anything, he promised. I spent the next hours at the public library, researching Cayman banking laws and offshore asset recovery. My phone rang just after noon. Nora, you need to see this, Raj said without preamble. How soon can you get back here? 20 minutes later, I stared at his computer screen. My hands clenched in my lap. The thumb drive contained detailed records of an account in Grand Cayman, holding over $2.3 million. Money skimmed from our joint investments over years. There were also folders of emails between Dom and his attorney discussing how to shield these assets, when Nora inevitably discovers the affairs. They had planned everything. How to minimize my settlement, how to claim our Boston home was purchased primarily with his premarital funds, a blatant lie. Even how to argue that my career success was due to his connections. He's been planning to leave you, Raj said gently. No. I corrected, a cold certainty settling over me. He's been planning to discard me after taking what's mine. The final folder contained the most damning evidence. Documents showing Dom had been systematically transferring my inheritance money into high-risk investments without my knowledge, using forged authorizations. Nearly $180,000 of my personal funds gone. This is criminal, Raj said. Not just divorce court. This is fraud. I took a deep breath. Make copies of everything. Then return the drive exactly as it was. By 1:45 p.m., the thumb drive was back in its hiding place, the strand of hair carefully repositioned. I changed into workout clothes and drove to the gym, establishing another alibi in case Dom checked. That evening he returned home with an expensive bottle of wine and sun on his face from an actual afternoon golf game. Probably a quick 9 holes to maintain his cover story. How was the charity event? I asked innocently. Great, he said, loosening his tie. Raised over $50,000 for children's cancer research. I smiled, picturing the hotel room he'd actually spent the morning in with Vanessa. That's wonderful. How was your meeting with the financial advisor? He asked. Enlightening. I answered truthfully. I learned so much about hidden assets. His hand paused briefly while reaching for a wine glass. Oh, like what? Like how important transparency is in a marriage, I said lightly. She recommended we do a full financial disclosure before my move to Seattle, just to make sure everything's protected while I'm gone. Dom's smile tightened. Seems unnecessary. Our finances are an open book. Exactly, I agreed, holding his gaze. So it should be no problem. Later that night, I sent encrypted copies of everything to both my divorce attorney and a trusted colleague at the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. Not filing a report yet, just establishing a record with someone I trusted. The next week passed in careful preparation. I secured a furnished apartment in Seattle, transferred important documents to a safe deposit box under my name only, and began shipping professional books to May that actually contained evidence, financial records, and irreplaceable family heirlooms. 2 days before my scheduled departure, I met with Patricia at the bank again. I'd like to open a new account, I explained. One with no connection to my existing accounts. She understood immediately. A fresh start account. We can do that. Cash deposits only. I nodded. And I'd like to close out my personal savings, the one Dominic tried to access. Of course. How would you like the funds? Cashier's check, I said. Made out to my maiden name. The next day, I converted the check to cash at a different bank, then deposited most of it into my new account, keeping $10,000 for immediate needs. That evening, I packed my Seattle suitcase with clothes I actually intended to leave behind. Dom watched me pack, offering occasional suggestions. Don't forget your hiking boots. Seattle has amazing trails. Good idea, I said, adding them to the pile. Boots I'd never particularly liked. He wrapped his arms around me from behind. I'm going to miss you. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. This man who thought he was the clever one, the puppet master. He had no idea what was coming. "I'll miss you too," I lied, turning to kiss him. "But it's only temporary." That night, I slipped a sleeping pill into his wine, just enough to ensure he wouldn't wake when I left our bed. In the darkness, I silently gathered the last items I couldn't bear to leave behind. My grandmother's jade pendant, photos of my parents, the leather journal I'd kept since college. I placed them in my real go bag, already hidden in my car trunk. At 5 a.m., I slipped out of bed and got dressed in the bathroom. Dom slept soundly, unaware that this would be the last time we shared a bed, a home, a life. I looked at him one last time, this man I had loved for a decade. I felt nothing but a calm resolve. I left my wedding ring on his nightstand with a note. "I know everything. Check your email at noon." What Dominic would discover when he woke was that I had disappeared. Not to Seattle as he expected, but to a location he would never find. What he didn't know was that at precisely noon, not only would he receive divorce papers citing his multiple affairs, but also copies of his financial crimes would simultaneously arrive at the SEC, FBI, and his bank's compliance department. The man who thought he was destroying me had actually engineered his own downfall. And I was finally free. "Ms. Chun, the prosecutor is ready to see you now." 6 months had passed since I left Boston. I was no longer Nora Chun Williams, but simply Nora Chun again, reclaiming my identity along with my freedom. I straightened my blazer and followed the assistant into a conference room where Assistant U.S. Attorney Diane Vasquez waited with a team of financial crime specialists. "Thank you for coming in person," Diane said, shaking my hand. "Your documentation has been invaluable to building this case." "I'm just glad someone took it seriously," I replied, taking a seat across from her. "Multiple counts of wire fraud, forgery, and financial exploitation tend to get our attention," she said with a grim smile. "Especially when the evidence is as meticulously organized as yours was." The evidence I'd provided had led to formal charges against Dominic 3 months ago. His arrest at his office, dramatic and public, had made the financial news. His firm had immediately distanced themselves, issuing statements about zero tolerance for ethical breaches. "How is the case progressing?" I asked. "His attorney keeps pushing for a plea deal," Diane explained. "But we're not interested. The scope of financial crimes extends beyond just what he did to you. We've uncovered similar patterns with client funds." I wasn't surprised. A predator rarely had just one victim. "And the divorce?" she asked. "Finalized last month," I said. The prenup's infidelity clause worked in my favor, as did the evidence of financial fraud. The judge was not sympathetic to his claims. What I didn't mention was how Dominic had tried desperately to contact me after finding my note. Hundreds of calls, emails, texts, all unanswered. How he'd shown up at May's house in Seattle, only to discover I'd never arrived there. How he'd hired a private investigator who failed to locate me in my small apartment in Chicago, where I'd been working remotely for my firm's Midwest office. Looking forward to it. Back at my apartment, I opened my laptop to join the weekly video call with my forensic accounting team. As senior manager now, a promotion I'd earned after uncovering an embezzlement scheme similar to Dom's during my first month in Chicago, I led a team specializing in financial fraud cases. "Nora, did you see the Simmons case coverage?" my colleague Owen asked as soon as I joined. "Just the headlines," I replied. "They referenced our work. The methodology you developed for tracking layered transactions is being called groundbreaking by the journal." I smiled. Professional recognition was satisfying, but what meant more was knowing my experience had been transformed into something that helped others. Later that evening, I met Trevor at a small Italian restaurant overlooking the river. His smile was warm, genuine. "How was the prosecutor meeting?" he asked after we ordered. "Productive. Trial starts next month. They want me to testify." He reached across the table, taking my hand. "How do you feel about facing him again?" I considered the question carefully. "Ready. What he did no longer has power over me." "You're remarkable," Trevor said. "Most people wouldn't have had the strength to do what you did. Not just leave, but make sure he faced consequences." "I'm an accountant," I said with a small smile. "We believe in balancing the books." My phone buzzed with an email notification. My realtor in Boston. The sale of the brownstone had finally closed. Another tie to my old life severed. The proceeds would be split according to the divorce settlement, with the larger portion coming to me after the judge ruled that Dominic's financial fraud invalidated his claims to the property. Good news? Trevor asked, noticing my expression. Just closing a chapter, I replied. A necessary one. Later that night, back in my apartment, I opened the safe in my closet and removed a small wooden box. Inside was the thumb drive, the original one from Dom's hiding place, which I'd taken when I left. I'd kept it as insurance, never needing to use it after Raj's copies proved sufficient for both legal cases. I plugged it into my computer one last time, transferring the final encrypted backup to my secure cloud storage. Then I dropped the physical drive into a glass of water, watching as its circuits shorted out. Tomorrow, I would destroy it completely. My phone rang, May calling from Seattle. The prosecutor says they have enough to put him away for at least 5 years. I told her after we exchanged greetings. Good, she said firmly. Are you still coming for Thanksgiving? Mom and Dad are excited to see your new place afterward. Tickets booked, I confirmed. I'm bringing Trevor to meet everyone. Ooh, serious, she teased. Cautiously optimistic, I corrected. I trust differently now. After we hung up, I stood at my window overlooking the Chicago skyline, lights twinkling against the night sky. 1 year ago, I had been living someone else's version of a perfect life. Now I was building my own, authentic, hard one, and entirely mine. I thought about Dominic, awaiting trial, his reputation and career destroyed by his own actions. I felt no satisfaction in his downfall, only a quiet certainty that justice was being served. The woman he'd betrayed me with, Vanessa, had turned state's witness against him, saving herself by revealing even more about his financial schemes. The lesson I'd learned wasn't about revenge, but about reclaiming my power, about recognizing that the same skills that made me excellent at my job, attention to detail, methodical investigation, strategic thinking, had saved me from a man who thought I was too trusting to notice his betrayal. Tomorrow I would testify in a deposition, calmly recounting each fraudulent transaction, each forged document, each betrayal. I would look him in the eye, not as a victim, but as the professional who had meticulously documented his downfall. And then I would return to Chicago, to my new career, my new relationship, my new life, stronger and wiser than before. The stranger's shoes in my hallway had been a warning sign I couldn't ignore. They had revealed not just an affair, but a life built on deception. Walking away hadn't been easy, but staying would have cost me everything. My financial security, my self-respect, my future. Instead, I had turned evidence into power, betrayal into strength, ending into beginning. I closed my curtains on the city lights and turned toward my own space, smaller than the Boston brownstone but filled with only things I had chosen, people I had vetted, a life I had designed. This was what victory looked like. Not destroying someone else, but rebuilding yourself, stronger, wiser, and finally, completely free.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.